Hey guys, I'm Sai and welcome to A.C.E Podcast Nation, the home of the Andy Campbell Show. This is episode number 74. The show is live on YouTube, Facebook and Twitter. A.C.E Podcast Nation, also your home to many other great shows and series, top guests, expert analysts and more. So please give us a follow on social media and of course subscribe to the YouTube channel. Best way to support us. You can get the audio versions at all the usual podcast and radio platforms. And of course you can follow the show if you want to streamline your experience and just want to focus on the football shows and talk football by following the Andy Campbell shows at A.C.E Footy Show. Sorry, I got confused there. And that's on Twitter, Instagram and Facebook. So just as we wait for the chat to fill up with the latecomers, big shout out and thank you to Black Diamond Sports for all their support. Black Diamond Sports, of course, is a global sports agency representing sports stars from around the world. For more information, you can visit their social media pages as well as their brand new website. The links to which are in the description, as well as the closing credits at the end of the show. And today's sponsor, as per usual, is Bespoke Financial. Big thank you to them. And here's just a quick word from them as well.
My mummy and daddy have been talking about life insurance. It sounds like something to protect my brother and me, but I don't really understand. Then my Auntie Louise told mummy about Bespoke Financial Teesside. She said they're a local company who helped her with her life insurance. Mummy got in touch, and because they're based locally, a man called Darren was able to come to our house. He was really friendly. Darren stayed for a cup of tea and made it all really easy to understand. He said that life insurance will protect our home and family if anything bad were to happen. Like if mummy or daddy got sick, then we'd get enough money to take care of us, and our house would be paid for so we wouldn't get taken away. After an hour, Darren said goodbye and mummy and daddy seemed a lot happier. Once it was all sorted, we could all relax and watch a film together as a family. I don't know why they didn't do it sooner.
A big thank you to Bespoke Financial, of course, and Bespoke Financial specialise in life insurance, critical illness, income protection, mortgages, and of course, sports cover. You can find links to their social media pages in the description below, as well as the closing credits again. And of course, we thank them for sponsoring the show. So, let's talk some football. Of course, joining me first, introducing the goal collector, the fox in the box, still the king of the Millennium Stadium. He is Middlesbrough's favourite son, the king of the over 40s. Davy Jones's favourite son. Mr. Andy Campbell, how are you, mate?
I'm good, mate, yeah. It's great to have a guest on that I've played with. So I'm really looking forward to this one. A little bit like a kid in the sweet shop. So yeah, it'll be a good show.
It's a reunion, mate, a reunion.
Sort of, yeah.
But today's guest started his professional career at Manchester United before playing for almost an endless list of top clubs, including Royal Antwerp, Reading, Burnley, West Ham United, Stoke City, Norwich, MK Dons and more, making nearly 500 career appearances, scoring 43 goals, representing England under-21s. It is my absolute pleasure to introduce Mr. Luke Chadwick. Welcome, Luke. How are you, mate?
Yeah, all good. Thanks for having me on.
Thanks for coming on, Luke. As I say, it's nice to have somebody from my generation, somebody that I was lucky enough to play with. So it was always a pleasure to play with you. It was always a good crack as well. Because we always had a good laugh our generation, didn't we?
Yeah, it was a good time. It's been a while. I remember
it's been too long, mate. I think I'll be honest. It's been far too long.
A fair few years ago that we played together.
Far too long. We've lost a lot of hair in the meantime between.
Yeah, all gone now.
So it looks like he's got long hair.
Yeah, he's coming back. I'm going to grow it back out, I think. Very briefly, I'm just going to address a comment in the chat. Richie Thomas says he just wants to know what I thought of Kiefer Moore's performance over the weekend because I slated Cardiff on Friday. I will address it on Friday, Richie, because this is not the championship show, but set piece merchant, isn't he? Anyway, so to start off the show, look, we're going to go with the quickfire questions, the magnificent seven quickfire questions, and just to answer the first thing which comes to mind. So, Luke Chadwick's Magnificent Seven. Messi or Ronaldo?
Messi.
Manchester United or MK Dons?
Man United.
Favourite TV show?
Some very disappointed MK Dons fans right now, by the way.
Oh, yes. Favourite TV show?
This country.
Anything. Just favourite TV show. Anything you want.
This country.
Oh, right. That's a show, is it? I thought you were asking me the question. In this country. Okay. Fair enough. Angriest teammate?
Roy Keane.
Paul Ince, Alex Ferguson or Carl Robinson?
Sir Alex.
That's a tricky one, I thought.
That was a good one.
Ryan Giggs or David Beckham?
Oh my God.
It's a good question, though.
Beckham.
And
you've upset a lot of people, including Sal on the show.
Alright, so I'm a Rodri fan. Greatest Englishman of all time.
Oh my God.
Oh no, actually, the greatest Englishman who ever lived is actually technically the question.
We've had some unbelievable answers, haven't we? We've had some unbelievable answers.
Doesn't have to be football related, that one.
I'll have to go with a fictional character, Alan Partridge.
I like that. I like that a lot.
I like that. We've had some very random, haven't we? Very random, outside the box questions. We've had some. That's another excellent answer, by the way.
That's why it's good, isn't it? Because literally everyone is going to say something completely different, and because you're put on the spot as well, it's like it just puts you on the spot. Then you did
put him on the spot, so didn't you? You didn't have to put him on the spot with a few of them as well. Oh, by the way.
Yeah, well, I like to test the guests, let the people.
All for the people who get to know you, Luke. Before we delve into the good stuff shortly.
That's it. They weren't that bad, anyway. They weren't as bad. Who had the bad ones? It was David Cottrell had a couple of bad ones, didn't he?
Yeah, there's been when there's been a little bit of a controversy. We've stitched a little bit there. David Cottrell got Cardiff or Swansea, which didn't go down very well. But hey ho, bit of fun, wasn't it?
Yeah,
bit of fun. Might not talk to us again, but
bit of fun. Nice. He's coming back.
Been on the show now,
back. So yeah. So what we like to do, Luke, before we sort of delve into your career and stuff. We do any other business where we pick a couple of stories from the football world over the weekend or the past week, just have a little chat about them. And as an ex-Man United player, I wanted to pick your brains on a couple of bits from Man United over the weekend and the last week. Not so much their performance, because that was garbage. I'm not really interested in that. I'm more interested in the comments which Ole Gunnar Solskjaer made. He was not a happy camper on Friday in his press conference over basically Mason Greenwood. They've spent the last year, as Man United have done for many years, as I'm sure you ought to be aware from your time there, is he didn't do any interviews apart from on their own TV channel. They kept him out of the limelight, kept his feet on the ground. He went for his first trip to England, and then he was in front of the media. I think it was the first day or the first morning he was there. So I don't think Solskjaer was too happy about that, and he kind of criticised their treatment of him. And I guess I wanted to know your opinion of that, and also sort of shine a light on it for us on Manchester United's protection of those young players. Like we didn't hear from Ryan Giggs. It felt like for the first 10 years of his career.
Yeah, I think at Manchester United it is a case they do try and protect their young players and keep them out the media as much as possible. I remember myself as a young player, I never really spoke to the press at all. That might have been because they weren't that interested in what I had to say, but it was just a case of shielding players. I think whether that's a good thing or not, I'm not so sure in this day and age. I think things have changed a lot in terms of Ryan Giggs from 25 years ago, or however long it was, where there is so much attention, so much media coverage that it probably is a good idea to get younger players in front of the camera at an early age and to get comfortable with it. Obviously, I'm not sure it was the best idea from England to throw Greenwood straight in front of the press, considering he'd not really done any of that sort of thing before. And I'm sure there was plenty of other more experienced players that could have done that press conference. Obviously, the next thing that happened is Greenwood having a girl in his room or whatever with Phil Foden, which is, of course, probably not the best thing to do at any stage of your career when you're away for England, particularly though when you're on your first trip, and then obviously the media storm around that is always going to be huge. So obviously Mason brought that on himself by getting himself in that situation. I can understand Solskjaer's frustration to a certain extent of Greenwood being thrown in the first instance in front of the press, but other than that, I think Mason Greenwood's put on a bit of trouble himself. A young lad, I'm sure he'll learn a lot from it, but he's going to have to deal with that. The club's going to have to deal with that, and it's not helped, of course, with such a inept performance from the team in the first game of the season, particularly with Greenwood being left out probably because of the England situation. Had ended last season as probably United's best player, so it was a big loss of only playing the second half. So I understand all his frustration for the first instance, but other than that, I think Mason's brought on the negative press coverage himself, really.
You say there, Luke. You say you mentioned Ryan Giggs there, and I'm gonna throw obviously some other quick names at you. So I'll go Paul Scholes, David Beckham, probably Gary Neville to a certain degree, and obviously Ryan Giggs. That if Manchester United or the players themselves knew they were going to be world superstars like they were, do you think then they probably should have been put into the cameras a little bit to give them some experience? Because obviously David Beckham was thrown into the limelight probably more than most with getting married to a Spice Girl, getting sent off in a World Cup quarter final against Argentina. Paul Scholes was relentless, never ever went in front of a camera, but now he's on TV. Probably similar to Michael Owen to a certain degree, that these players didn't do it as young players, and now they go on TV and they get a lot of stick for being probably one-toned or being boring, which I don't believe, by the way. I find them really exciting to listen to, but they do seem to get a lot of stick on social media and by other reporters for those kind of reasons, and I think it's unfair. But would it have helped if they had a little bit more experience as younger people or younger players?
Yeah, I think so. I think definitely it's good, particularly now. Obviously, back then it wasn't. It was obviously a huge industry, a huge game, a huge club, Manchester United. But even between 20 years ago and now, that it's gone up so much in terms of the coverage that's given to the players and everything, that they have to be media trained. Really, they have to know how to speak in front of a camera, how to express themselves, because that's as much as a game as the football is now. You mentioned Paul Scholes there, who didn't really do any interviews throughout his whole career. I don't think a player of his standing could probably get away with not doing that in this day and age, the way that the game is now, because it's such a huge business.
But you look at social media, like around about interviews. Interviews can be done in so many ways, can't they? They could be done over Zoom, a StreamYard like this. They can be done over just a phone being stuck in your face in a restaurant or in a shop that someone has asking you a question, and that whatever you say is out there forever, because you know what I mean. If you get caught on the spot sometimes, and I think it's so unfair for young players nowadays for social media to punish people over and over, because if you do make a mistake, because let's be honest, everyone's young once, we've all made mistakes as young people, said something we shouldn't have to the wrong person at the wrong time, but luckily enough for me and for when I played, when you played, that those mistakes do get forgotten about over a short space of time, because they can't be getting brought up via video message or social media and retweeted and shared, etc. And it must be so hard nowadays for a player to concentrate solely on football when social media is so rife.
Here's a question for both of you, quickly. Sorry to interject there, Luke. I just want to ask both of you this question while Andy was talking about it. Are you two glad that social media wasn't a thing when you were like 18, 19, breaking into the team? Yeah. And do you think you'd have at some point posted something or got caught out on, having beers or something, just not necessarily massive, but just there would have been some sort of mistake, because you're growing up in the public eye, and I think social media has made that a lot harder for young players. Luke, you go first. Are you glad that social media wasn't there when you were that age? And also, do you think you would have tripped up?
Yeah, 100%. I think you'd be lying. I think any young player would be lying if they say they wouldn't have tripped up at some point. We've all done something stupid, and if you do that now, you do get caught out, because there's always a camera phone or someone's seen it and it's all over social media. So 100% I would have got caught out, like I think most people would have, and it's probably back then, 25 years ago, however long it was, probably a lot worse things were happening than what are happening now in terms of the guys having a couple of girls in the rooms or whatever and getting caught out that way. But it's bigger business now. It's even more in the public eye. So it's in much harder now. But at the same time, it sort of forces the young players to behave themselves to a certain extent.
Just about. What about you, And?
I think you can look at it from two ways. I think for a football term, I don't think I would have posted after a game to say, you know what I mean, because you're there to get shot down. You're there, you know what I mean, for away fans who would probably slag you off and tell you how bad you are, this, that, and whatever, and be personal. If you didn't play well, you know what I mean, are you going to tweet all the time? Is someone doing your tweets for you? And I'll use Ronald Koeman as an example. That Ronald Koeman, after every single game when he was Everton manager, tweeted the same thing. Basically, thanks for the fans for coming. You know what I mean? Safe journey home. We'll go again next week. Blah blah blah. Which is fine because he's interacting with people. I used to read the comments. I started with the first week and he was getting some negative comments. The week after he was getting abused. The following week, listen, and it's not worth the hassle. So just don't do it. You know what I mean? You're famous enough. You don't need the hassle. You don't need the extra pressure. And what Luke said there, you know what I mean? That you be anyone come on this show or any platform to say they didn't get caught out and didn't do something when they were younger, they were an absolute complete and compulsive liar. Because I would have got caught out every Sunday. I'll be honest. And the pub I was in Cardiff, and Geth just wrote on the group chat there that we had a Sunday club at Cardiff, we had a Sunday club at Middlesbrough, we had a Saturday club at Middlesbrough, and every weekend it was the same thing. It was a drink culture, and it wasn't anybody's fault. It was just the way that football was going or had gone, and it was probably transitioning. But it was loads of fun. And would I change it for the world? No, of course I wouldn't. But I wouldn't have liked a camera phone in my face at 11 o'clock at night after being in the pub all day. That would have been very dangerous for everybody. For everybody.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad, and I wasn't a footballer, I'm glad the social media wasn't around when I was a teenager to 20, because I'd have probably been unemployable at any point in my life. Because I said, I did said a lot of stupid stuff when I was a horrible teenager. I got progressively better as I've got older, I like to think. But I just think that social media would have not been a good thing for me as a young person. So I do feel for these players who are growing up in the limelight, especially you see people like, I forgot his name again, and the one who went to Borussia Dortmund from a championship. Bellingham, 16, 17 in the public eye, that's got to be so difficult. I got a 15-year-old. I know you two have got teenagers as well. Can you imagine them having to have a social media accounts and being have the media hounding them everywhere they go? Is incredibly difficult.
But on that though, because there is a positive that comes out of obviously negatives and things, and the way that Jude's handled himself over social media is absolutely fantastic. By the way, because. Obviously, the story, Luke, with them retiring his shirt from last year, which is just which wasn't his choice, by the way. He got landed with something which was out of his control. But the way that he's handled the banter, the way that he's handled probably the unkindness as well, it was just amazing. And you know what? Whoever's advising him, or if he's doing it himself, or it's his family, or his brothers, fair play to him, because you know what? He's come out with a lot more credit, and he's allowed his football to go and do the talking in Germany, and he started off like a house on fire. He's doing really well. And hopefully it can carry on.
Yeah, definitely. I think that just shows how maybe it is the social media side of it and the positive side of it, the way that young players like himself have handled themselves and shown the positive way around it and how to use Twitter, Facebook, whatever it is, in a real positive manner to build your profile.
Yeah, I totally agree, Luke. I think, you know what I mean, social media can be a tool for good, and also it can be a tool for bad. It depends how you use it. You know that I'm a huge advocate for me that Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, LinkedIn, Snapchat, whatever anybody wants to use it, but use it with your own name, and whatever you write and whatever you say to people, if that's good or bad, live and die by it. Live and die by it. Because if you're going to say something nasty to me, that's fine. That's absolutely fine. You know what I mean? You want to insult my family? You've got that. You can write whatever you want, but I want to see who's writing it, and I want to see everyone else to know who's written it, because that's somebody's son, daughter, brother, sister.
Yeah. But you know what else, and as well to that, there's another aspect to that, is that whether it's celebrities, people generally, young people particularly, is people make mistakes. Anyone who tells you they've never made a mistake is a liar. Everybody has made mistakes. Now, I believe that if you make a mistake, you should be given the opportunity to show that you've grown and that you're sorry and that you can learn from it and you can improve as a person to a certain extent. Obviously, like when you start breaking the law and things like that are slightly different. But if it's just like a stupid tweet from when you were 14 and you see some people, celebrities, getting, dragged up on it like 15, 20 years later or whatever it is, a long time later, I find that troubling. But I believe that everyone makes mistakes and you should be allowed to grow by it. If you keep making the same mistake, then obviously there's a different road. But ultimately, these are young people growing up in the public eye. Okay.
Just to finish on this social media one, by the way. Anybody who doesn't follow Luke on social media, by the way, it does brighten up your day. By the way, there's the tweets that you do, you know what I mean, are so funny. The LinkedIn's what you put on, you know what I mean, are just amazing. So anybody who doesn't follow him just to cheer yourself up on a Monday morning or a weekend or whatever day he puts things out, because they are absolutely superb, mate. So carry them on, please do.
Thank you.
Spot on. So last bit of any other business, and I know you wanted to talk about the crowds being back in football to a certain degree.
It's not a crowd.
We talked about it a little bit on Friday, didn't we? About like that the numbers were almost not worth it, and with the grounds the way they are in this day and age, there's enough room to have more than 1,000 fans there and still stick to the regulations of social distancing and this. The only issue maybe is kind of in the foyers and things like that. But I think you can do more than 1,000 and you can certainly work it better than what they are at the moment. But what did you think of it?
I just thought it looked silly, you know. I got an opportunity to go to the game, and I didn't go to the game because I wanted to see what it was going to look like. And I watched it on the TV, and what I saw from my own eyes was it just looked ridiculous, you know. But there was no two people sat with each other, you know what I mean. So that's the son or daughter, husband, wife, brother and sister, whatever that may be. They were sitting with the seats gap, and it just didn't look right for me, you know, that 1,000 people for me. If that's 1,000 people in a 40,000 all-seater stadium, it's going to be 1,000 people in a 7,000-seater stadium. It just doesn't make sense. To have a percentage, and the percentage could have worked. They could have opened two sides of the stadium, you know what I mean, so opposite from each other. They could have opened behind the goals. I just think 1,000 fans, there was no point, you know what I mean. And then I heard Kevin Blackwell saying that the fans made a difference. That's brilliant, but 10,000 fans would have made a bigger difference, and Middlesbrough could have got the much-needed points that they need, because, you know what I mean, they're used to playing in front of big players. You know, we just spoke off air there about personally how fans made a huge impact on my career and how they made an impact on my game day and my preparation and how I felt during the game. I couldn't imagine listening to individuals during the game, you know what I mean, being an adult and playing for competitive 3 points. It'd be very surreal and very strange. And listen, it's great to have football back. It's great to have fans back in, but for me, we can have more and just, you know what I mean, because I look at what's going on in the government at the minute and what I'm listening to in the local area, that we had 1,000 fans back on Saturday, and potentially we're going back in lockdown in a week. So how does this work? What's the point in having fans back if we're going to go back into lockdown? It just doesn't make sense to me, the whole thing.
Yeah, it's troubling with regards to the guidance and everything. It changes week to week, doesn't it? And it's frustrating because no one really knows where they stand and no one really knows what to do. But in terms of the football crowds, look, you can't fill the stadiums up at the moment. We know that. But there's got to be a better way to do it. I just don't see how 1,000 fans can make that much of a difference. Because, as you know, like in a football stadium or whatever, not every single fan makes a noise and shouts and sings. So when you portion that out of 1,000, if you're lucky, half of them will sing and shout, maybe a bit more because they know that there's not many there. I just wonder, is there a way to get bigger crowds in without making it, without breaking the government's guidelines? What did you think of it, Luke? And what do you think of it going forwards?
Yeah, I understand it to a certain extent. Obviously, safety is paramount. I think the whole situation, the messaging has been so mixed. I don't think anyone really knows what's safe, what's not safe, how many people can sit together, how many people can't. So they've got to get fans in somehow. There's 1,000 this week. Hope maybe in 2 weeks there's more, and it just keeps going up, making sure that things are safe. It's a bit of a mess at the moment, to be fair. Thank God they are back playing football, so we've got something to watch on the telly. Hopefully sooner rather than later there's fans back in, because I'm sure everyone agrees it's not the same spectacle. It's not got nothing about it really without it, but without, it's better than nothing. It's better than nothing at the moment, and hopefully things will just slowly improve, and before we know it, there'll be 40, 50, 60,000 fans back in stadiums.
Yeah, fingers crossed. But also, sorry, but
it's all right, I was going to just ask a question from there.
Luke, how does, obviously you've, one of your sons play football. Obviously, you've still got close links with Cambridge United. How's a club like Cambridge United coping with this kind of thing happening at the club? With no fans in there. That financially, and obviously football terms as well.
Yeah, to be fair, Cambridge have started the season, are absolutely flying, so perhaps they're better without fans in the stadium. I think Cambridge were used, and they had 1,000 fans come in for the Fulham game in the Johnson's Paint Trophy, or whatever it's called now, and they had fans go into that, which was obviously great for the club, and it was real positive news. In terms of financially, it's a struggle for Cambridge. It's a struggle for every single League One, League Two club, because the majority of the finance comes from the gate receipts, people coming through the turnstile. So I think there's only a certain amount of shelf life to it, unless there's going to be money filtered down from the Premier League or wherever it comes from, because the clubs just won't be able to survive long term without supporters in the stadium.
Yeah, which is such a shame, isn't it? So you've got a couple of good questions.
Yeah. I got a couple there which kind of fit into this this subject. So we got Richie asked a quick question for Andy and Luke. How would you both feel if you were playing during this current situation? Would it have an impact on your confidence to play, etc.? Luke, you go first, mate.
I think it'd have you play football, you want to be a footballer as a child. The thing you want to do is play in front of thousands and thousands of supporters. That's what the dream is when you're growing up. So for them not to be there, I think it would have an impact without a doubt. I think you sort of see in the games now that you watch on the telly, they all start quite slowly. It's not got the same pace to the game, not the same intensity, because I think that comes from the crowd. It sort of builds you up and has you run around a little bit more, run around a little bit faster. So it definitely have a detrimental impact, in my opinion, on the majority of players' performance. Obviously, if you're going through a bit of a bad time and you're getting a load of stick off the fans, it might be a quite nice environment to be in, because there's no crowd in the stadium. But I think there's no benefit from there not being crowd in the stadiums, obviously, apart from the safety aspect due to the current situation.
Yeah, what about you, And? Would you have struggled with it, do you think?
I enjoyed, same as Luke. I wanted to be a footballer because it was about playing in front of crowds. I watched my heroes as a fan at Ayresome Park, watching Middlesbrough, and I used to love going there and wanting to be that person one day on the pitch with supporters all around 4 stadiums and watching those 11 players on the pitch. And for me, it just reminds me of playing in the reserve team environment, and I don't think I'd be a big fan of it. They don't have a choice, obviously, but. Ideally, we want fans back in gradually. Yes, safe, yes, but for me, we've got to give it a go. But we've got to give it a go probably in more grounds than just testing it at one ground, for example, because it might not work at all grounds as well. That depending on size of stadium and stuff. So we just need to be a little bit aware, and I'm more conscious about teams like what Luke said there, Cambridge. Teams who are struggling for money, forget Middlesbrough. I'm not saying Middlesbrough aren't struggling for money and things, but for me, 1,000 fans at the Abbey Stadium would make a huge difference for Cambridge United having that kind of revenue coming through the door. So,
well, they're straight. Rob Boyle has just said in the chat that breaking news: Merthyr Town have suspended their entire season because of the current situation. I know Merthyr went into local lockdown today, but like a club the size of Merthyr, who've already, Merthyr Town is the kind of reborn version of Merthyr Tydfil after they went belly up. That's for the fans of Merthyr, that's a frightening situation, because you struggle to see how a club that size is going to survive the whole season. Like what's being played, 1-2 games maybe at the most.
Yeah.
That's, I struggle to see how they'll survive that. I've got to be honest. Okay. I got to ask this question now, Luke, just because it is an absolute humdinger to get us in the mood for questions from the live chat. Donna Perry, she pops in once a week, drops a question, and then disappears.
She drops a bomb. And leaves.
So she says, Luke, did Andy Cole, and Teddy Sheringham really not talk to each other off the pitch? And if so, what was the reason?
They didn't. I never ever saw Teddy and Coley speak to each other off the pitch. They were absolutely fine on the pitch, but I've no idea what the reason is behind it. I don't know if many people did. There obviously was something there, but I've no idea what it was. But I never... you'd see they'd sometimes celebrate together. Teddy had certainly set Coley up for a fair few goals throughout their time there. But I think there was an underlying issue, but no, I don't know.
No one knows
what
why.
it is.
Does that just show though the professionalism though from the two players?
God, yeah.
Because
I think
that that we've all been at football clubs where we don't get on with everybody. You know what I mean? It's very rare that you can probably have close friends at football clubs because it's all quite cutthroat. But it just shows those two, especially how professional they were.
Yeah, the manager as well obviously signed Andy Cole first, then he signed Teddy Sheringham. I'm sure the amount of background check that used to go into finding what sort of people these guys were, just as much as a player they were. They must have known that there was a situation there, I would imagine. But like you say, it didn't really make a difference to the success of the club at the time.
Rob Boyle also asked, just because Teddy Sheringham's come up, he said, what was it like playing with Teddy Sheringham?
Teddy Sheringham was my favourite player to play with. Scholes was the best player I've ever played with, but for me, as a wide man, Sheringham was a dream, really. If you could play it round the corners into his feet, you could give him a dodgy pass, but he'd somehow manage to control it, and he'd always give you a great through ball, or if you wanted to come inside and play 1-2s, he was an absolute dream to play with. I was lucky enough to play with him at Man United and at West Ham, and he was an absolute, such a clever player. It was incredible,
sensational.
It was different class, though, wasn't he? I mean, imagine if he had the pace that other people had. That was for me the only thing that he was lacking. You know what I mean? He had everything upstairs. He had the great feet. He had the goals. He was great in the air. He could hold the ball up, like you say, round the corners, 1 touch, 2 touch. He was a joy to watch. You know what I mean? He must have been a phenomenal player to play with. But you know what I mean? Imagine if he had that yard of pace that he could get away from people. You know what I mean? He would have just been the all-round perfect player. Yeah,
you'd sometimes think if he had that, would he have had all the other stuff? Because he would have had to work as hard to be as good at everything else. But like you say, if he did have everything else and the pace, I don't think there would have been many better than him.
Like you say, Luke, that for me, I like the way that he drops into that 10. You know what I mean? That he didn't have the pace to go running behind, so he had the clever thinking and the clever thought process to get himself in the 10 area to cause problems in between the midfield and the defence, and he was just undefendable. He was getting those areas which he used to do all the time. Even from crosses, he'd always pull up to the 6-yard box, the 18-yard box. No one would ever mark him. No one would ever work it out, and he made a career out of doing it all of the time, and no one ever got wise to it. And I never really understood why.
They're just so clever in his sort of awareness of where to be, who he was playing against. I think he was quite studious of the game, of knowing what made another centre-half struggle, knowing their strengths and weaknesses, where he needed to be to make their life hard. And he was so clever, such a clever player.
Yeah, great. That.
And just very, very quickly, I just want to go back to what we were just talking about there, about clubs surviving. Merthyr Town's statement on it, they have pulled out of the season because if they played, they would go bust by, or the playing budget would run out by late November without fans in the stadium, so they've completely binned off their season. That is sensational and unbelievable.
This is serious, isn't it? This is serious, isn't it? That I know we harp on it. We don't harp on. I know we go on about Bury a lot because obviously Bury's the example that we try and hope that it never happens again, Luke, don't we? That you'll have played at Gig Lane quite a few times, been at United, and for me, I made my England debut there for the 18s. I made a cup game for Middlesbrough in the Coca-Cola Cup against Bury. It was always a lovely ground that I always enjoyed playing there. And for me, when that went bust, it left a horrible taste in my mouth that these kind of owners don't really have a care for the football club. They're in it for themselves. The players are just a number. The fans don't really care about. And I just hope this doesn't happen again to anybody else, because 92 Football League clubs, you know what I mean? We need to keep as many as we can, because, you know what I mean, it's so important. It's not about the Premier League and the Championship anymore. It's about everybody else. The FA Cup's so special to me, and we need all the clubs we can keep hold of. Yeah,
definitely. Don't want to see anyone sort of go to the wall like Bury have. It's heartbreaking, really. Obviously, the amount of games that I've played there for Man United reserves, probably more than I played for the first team over there. But it's so sad to see for any club, because that's the life and soul of football, isn't it? Them lower leagues, and it is like you mentioned there. It's not just the Premier League and the Championship. It's them 92 clubs. Obviously, the non-league circuits going through real tough times. You mentioned Merthyr there that are pulling out a season. It's scary times, and it all comes from no one knows what's happening at the moment. It's so much confusion. Is lower league football, like the non-league stuff, going to be able to carry on when the latest announcements come out? So it's all mixed up at the moment, and hopefully we'll get through it soon.
Yeah, well, I just don't think it's going to be there. I don't think they'll be the last team, will they? We've had big debates on here about the EFL, and for me, the EFL have handled things so badly. You know what I mean? That the Championship's allowed to carry on, and League One and League Two don't finish, and you know, I mean, certain clubs have been promoted or in the playoffs. You know, it's points per game. You know, I still listen, Luke. I'm quite good at maths. I really enjoy maths, but I still can't work out this points per game. I still can't work out how Ipswich or Sunderland didn't get in the playoffs, but and Wycombe Wanderers ended up in the Championship. It didn't really work out for me, but hey ho, I'm good friends with Gareth Angels, so I'm quite pleased with a couple of their players. It's that's worked out a little bit. But when you see big football clubs and you know what I mean, I listened to the Port Vale chairman or chairwoman, isn't she? And she was on about that she just couldn't afford to keep the club going for the rest of the season, and they had a chance to get promoted, and it has a huge impact on football clubs and fans and players, because as a player, you know yourself, Luke, that some players want to go through the leagues, or they want to get promoted, they want a winners medal, they might have been out of contract and they want to go at the Championship, and these are getting robbed of these once in a lifetime opportunities, unfortunately.
Yeah, it's scary time. You don't know what's going to happen. Obviously, we spoke about the fans not in the crowd. It's such a daunting time for players as well. Is there money there for contracts? Are they going to be not being able to find another club? It's an awful situation, not just for football, for the whole world in general.
Society, isn't it? Yeah. It's not great.
Indeed. Okay then, Luke. We're gonna move on to you now, mate. So just before we kind of delve into your career, I'd like to know, what is your earliest football memory, whether it be watching, playing, whatever it may be?
I think my earliest memory would be playing out in the garden with me brother and dad on the day of the 1987 FA Cup final, where Coventry played Spurs. It was an incredible game. And I think I remember back then the cup final day was the whole day. The program used to start.
Don't look. I'm getting excited just listening about it. Yeah, that was the game. That was the game where Keith Houchin scored the diving header.
That was it. So
I spoke to Keith about that because he's from Middlesbrough, so I've spoken about that.
Yeah, so that was probably the earliest memory that I've got of watching football. Because I had the old celebrity game used to be on before, then the build up to the main game, and that used to come on, and I was playing. It was a real sunny day, as FA Cup final day usually is, and outside just playing in the garden, and that was probably my earliest memory, because there certainly weren't as much football on TV back then than there is now, that's for sure. That's probably the only game that was on all season.
Yeah, I think it was, and I totally agree. Who did you grow up supporting, Luke?
Cambridge United. I was a massive Cambridge United fan. They were the first.
So, era-wise, are we talking Dion Dublin?
So when I first went, the club was struggling. So that was the likes of sort of Lindsay Smith, David Crown. I don't know if you've heard of it.
I have.
Really got into it. It was the best years of Cambridge United's history. So the likes of Dion Dublin, John Taylor, John Bourne, Liam Dace. It was an incredible team that nearly got up to the Premier League, 2 games away from being in the inaugural Premier League season. So it was.
Wasn't there a story? Didn't the manager used to throw cold water at the players? Is that what he used to do?
That was John Beck. He was a bit of a a bit of a maverick. I think they used to be a long ball team, so used to grow the pitch a bit longer in the corners, bit of sand there, and getting the ball in the channel. It certainly worked. Got them up the leagues, but it was exciting football to watch. They used to just get it wide and loads of ball in the box to Big Dion and John Taylor, and it was exciting football. I really enjoyed it.
Well, do you know what you say there, though? You know what I mean? But it's effective football. You know that we had a conversation on Friday about teams who persist with this 4-2-3-1, and it's continuous, but it's easy to defend sometimes. When you've got two centre forwards like that, and you've got two out and out wingers of a 4-4-2, and then you've got set pieces with big Liam Days coming forward. You know what I mean? It must have been a nightmare for defenders to even think about. Never mind play against.
Yeah, there's certainly a lot of goal mouth action. The ball used to be in the box a lot of the time, like you say, play for set pieces, real big, strong, powerful team, and it was a roller coaster few years. FA Cup quarter final twice, trip to Highbury, Dion scored at Highbury, got beat 2-1, and then Crystal Palace at the Abbey Stadium. Alan Pardew scored the winner for Palace that day. So it was that was why I fell in love with football, was watching Cambridge United, and just sort of the success they were having at the time as well obviously helped, and it was a fantastic time to be a Cambridge fan.
I think though, when you see history like that, and you see some of the players that have gone through, and you see the moves that they got, obviously Dion got himself a good move and a good career, and but he never forget his roots, and he always spoke well about Cambridge, and it put them on the map a little bit, didn't it? You know, and I think the stadium's become notorious for little stories or good cup runs or ex-players who played at a good level, and it's good for the city. It's great for the football club and the memories and the fans, because people never forget, Luke, do they?
No, the people still talk about them days today. When you're at the stadium, there's still photos of that team, that fantastic team that got two promotions and then to the playoffs in the what would be the Championship now, in the FA Cup runs. It's full of history. It's a fantastic little football club that's got, like every club has, it's got great moments in history that will never be forgotten.
Yeah, totally agree. You spoke about your dad and your brother there. Obviously that was your first memory, but who had the most influence during your early part and then towards the start of your career?
It's hard to say, really. I think obviously playing with my brother, he was a couple of years older, so playing with him in the garden a lot. When I was a kid, organised football didn't start until under 9, so I started playing for the local village team called Melbourne Tigers. I wouldn't say there was any real one person that influenced me. I think it was more from that experience of going to watch live football at Cambridge United that made me fell in love with the game. Then I just wanted to do it for myself, or just play myself, because I loved it. I probably spent the most amount of football playing out in the garden on my own, just practicing new skills and kicking the ball in a little plastic goal. And that was the real memories that I've got of growing up and playing football.
So who did you want to be then, Luke? Because obviously people have obviously seen you play and seen you dribbling with the ball and seen you the way that you played, when you're on about skills there. So who did you want to be when you were older? Who did you base your game around? Because obviously, you know what I mean, when I was younger, my big idol was Bernie Slave, and used to score goals, jump on the whole gate and celebrate, and I just always wanted to do that. It didn't matter how I scored. I was offside like Bernie quite a lot, but who did you base your game on?
I think I always used to just sort of fantasise about being the Cambridge players. So I just sort of had the team memorised off by heart, and I'd play the game in my back garden. I'd be commentating in my head who's got the ball, then I'd change it slightly so I was in that team. So Dion might have passed it out to Chadwick, and then I'd sort of go and score all the goals. So it was always, the fantasy was always sort of to play for Cambridge is what I used to go to bed dreaming about. My mum used to have the old football pools stuck to the back of the fridge, and I used to be an addict on teletext, so I'd learn all the players' names on teletext and just playing all these different games that were on the football pool. So it was I wouldn't say there was one particular player. I remember being sort of mesmerised as a 6-year-old in the 1986 World Cup with obviously Diego Maradona, who ended up breaking every Englishman's heart with the handball. But then I still sort of watch that goal to this day. The other goal where he dribbled through the whole team and went past Peter Shilton and tapped it in the goal. So it was he was obviously a big star back then, but I don't think there was many other players apart from the Cambridge ones, because I didn't see it that much on telly, because they just weren't. I sort of just learnt the players' names off teletext, but didn't really see them play that much.
Nice quality. Si, did I see you grinning there when Luke said that he broke his heart when Maradona scored that goal?
Don't know what you mean, mate. I had the goosebumps on the back of my neck just thinking about it.
Love it.
No, it's because he's one of my heroes, mate. Maradona. He's one of my.
Yeah, only because he scored against England twice.
No, he's just a legend, mate. He's growing up, I was obsessed with Maradona and Pele. Like, I used to watch VHSs of them both, and just repeatedly, like, I used to try and copy all their tricks.
Now you're showing your age, by the way. The VHS Betamax, wasn't it?
Yeah, I also used to copy where they used to get fouled and like get up and try and keep running, or where they would push players off who were trying to 2-foot them and stuff. And I think that's a lost art these days, because players obviously go down, from the slightest of touches, whereas like when I was growing up, and I'm sure the same for you guys, you would do anything you could to stay on your feet, keep hold of the ball, because you wanted to score. It's bizarre.
I think the tackles back when we played, and certainly back when they played, were a lot worse than they are now.
Much
people are protected.
Worse.
That you see Messi getting fouled all the time. You know what I mean? He's getting fouled, but a lot of them are tactical.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Some of the tackles.
Not many nasty ones, is there?
Luke being a right winger, Stuart Pearce. That doesn't get any harder than that when you play against someone like Stuart Pearce or Nigel Winterburn. Those kind of players. They're not there to be nice to you. They're there to hurt you, and they're there in the nicest possible way, by the way. And they do it because it's their job, because they want to be the best they can be.
Well, back in the day, they did try and hurt you, didn't they? They would they were trying to take Maradona and Pele out of the game rather than a tactical foul to break up play. On the subject of bad tackles, Rob Boyle asked Luke, on a scale of 1 to 10, how much of a so-and-so was Roy Keane?
Roy Keane was the ultimate captain. He was an incredible leader who demanded incredible standards. So I remember, obviously, as a young player at Man United, if you gave the ball away in training, he'd call you every name under the sun, and you'd think, oh my God, what am I into here? But off the pitch, he'd explain why he'd done it, saying that this is what's required to play at a club like this. So whereas I'm sure you've had that, Andy, when you've played with players throughout your career who just continually moaned at you or moaned at other players, and you sort of lose a bit of respect for them because that's all they do. But in terms of Roy Keane, you had the ultimate respect for him because he'd do it every day. He'd put in the incredible performance every day, and he'd tell you why he was calling you every name under the sun, because he wanted you to be better and he wanted you to be able to survive at that level of play, really. So he was incredible man. But we used to have a little...
Sorry, go on. You carry on, mate.
Like me and the other young lads used to hope and pray that when we played small-sided games that we weren't on his team. If you lost, you was in for it for the rest of the day, really.
Well, I was going to ask you, Luke. Were you there when he did that tackle on Haaland? Were you still there then?
Yeah, so I actually started that game. I started that Manchester derby at Old Trafford, and incredibly enough, I didn't drive at the time, and Roy Keane picked me up to take me to the game. So, I had to wait for him. He went missing after the tackle. I didn't see him for hours, and I was just waiting around the deserted Old Trafford because I couldn't get home. Then he just appeared from nowhere. But it was certainly
incredible,
a quiet car ride home, because obviously it was an awful challenge.
Yeah, did he ever say because I was looking the other day to try and find an interview about it and maybe him discussing it, and I couldn't really find anything where he kind of goes into it in detail. I know in his book he talks about the fact that when Roy Keane did his cruciate ligaments, Haaland had basically told him he was diving and to get up, and it kind of stemmed from that. But I never heard Roy Keane talk about it in an interview since the tackle. So I was just kind of really wondering, the insight into it, and if he had said anything further after it to the team or to to you guys, because it was a shocker.
Yeah, he never mentioned it. I don't think he's ever sort of... I do know on the footage when Roy does his cruciate at Ellen Road, you can see sort of Haaland sort of... Roy Keane's in agony and he's obviously doesn't deserve to get a tackle like that, but I've no idea if he regrets it or if it was something he wishes he hadn't have done. But it's just a shocking tackle.
You're muted, and
I don't think he will. I think he's that kind of person who
sticks
just
by his things, doesn't he?
Yeah,
good and bad.
Listen, you know what I mean? For what happened, by the way, you know what I mean? It's not nice, you know what I mean? I think he saw, when he did his cruise ship, he'll remember that. And every day through his rehab, he'll remembered that moment and relived that moment. And it happens with players. You'll always remember certain things. And unfortunately, you know what I mean? He's reacted in a way which wasn't very professional, but he's done it because that's what he believed was right.
Yeah, there's a bit of misinformation about that as well. People say that that tackle ended Alfie Haaland's career. It didn't end his career. He played again after that. I don't think he was ever the same, I got to say. But it didn't end his career, as I think many people do think that it did. It was not a great tackle, let's be honest.
No, it wasn't, no.
Go on, and you go.
I'd like to ask Luke about Man United, because we're talking about Man United now. So obviously it's a quick transition to talk about United, and obviously you were born in Cambridge, but then signed and played for Man United. So how did that come around? Because you know what I mean. It's obviously it must be a wider range of scout network. Now I'm guessing they're all over the world and they're all over the UK. But how did your move and your transition to United come around?
I think it was playing. You were probably the same at playing schools football as a kid. So for the area team, I'd play for Cambridge schools on a Saturday morning. And I'd also was at Arsenal at the time, so played for the Arsenal Centre of Excellence on a Sunday. But back then, I'm sure you'll agree, it's probably the schools football was probably more competitive than playing for a professional club. So it was off the back of that where I was scoring quite a lot of goals for my town team against teams in London, teams in the Midlands. So I forged a bit of a reputation, and it was a Man United scout come and watch me play for Cambridge, done quite well, and invited me up to Manchester for a week's trial, and it was off the back of that I ended up signing for the club as a schoolboy.
How did that feel, Luke? Because it doesn't get any bigger than Man United. You know that when you'd have gone there for the week, obviously going from the level you were playing at to the level then that you were training with, and obviously the training ground will have been at Carrickton, and which is just at the time was the place to go and play. You know what I mean? I remember I went there as a schoolboy to play certain friendly games against I think it was like a trio round robin sort of thing, and it was just immaculate training ground, and that was the highest standard at the time. So what was it like to have the facilities what they had?
Yeah, it's obviously amazing. I think originally going up there I was a real quiet, shy, nervous boy, so it was such a big thing for me to go up there. I didn't really like playing for Arsenal that much. I was so much more comfortable with my own peers, with my own friends that I could just express myself with. At the same time, at that period, Man United was like the utopia of kids football. Like all the best kids would end up going to United, like they'd pick them from around the country. So it was sort of filled with excitement and trepidation when I first went up to Manchester. But the second I stepped in there, I'd never experienced a sort of an environment like it. Everyone seemed so pleased to see you. Everyone was so enthusiastic about you. I just fell in love with the place the second I stepped in there. And then when they signed me, I was always going to sign for them because it was it was like a Disneyland for a young footballer to play at. Where it was incredible, absolutely incredible.
You just said something interesting there, Luke, and I just want to touch on it if you don't mind. That you said that you felt more comfortable with your peers and your friends than you did, obviously, when you're Man United. So what was that? Was that a confidence issue? Did you not have the confidence levels when you walked in? Because I remember you obviously growing up with you as a young lad when you were coming through United, and every time that you walked across that white line, so to speak, your confidence levels just seemed to change, and you were a different person on that pitch than you were off the pitch. Is that what you're trying to say?
Yeah. I think just as a person in general, I was just like, even at school, I was like a real quiet kid until I got to know everyone. I had to be comfortable in my environment to really express myself. So I never, at Arsenal, it was obviously a wonderful football club, but I never felt that at home there. At Manchester United, I sort of felt at home straight away and felt part of it and part of what was going on. So it was strange, really, but I felt so much more confident at Man United than I ever did at Arsenal, really. It was just how I was, a strange young boy.
Yeah. Obviously, you've seen, well, probably hundreds of players come through United, you know what I mean? Loads of quality, you know what I mean? The first team's won trophy after trophy, you know what I mean? World-class footballers. How tough was it to establish yourself and be and get where you wanted to be at a club like United?
That's a tough question. I never, even when I moved up to Manchester as a 16-year-old, I never thought I'd play for the first team. Like, I saw the players ahead of me. I knew that it was a wonderful opportunity for me that I couldn't turn down to spend 2 years there. So it was, when I got in and around the first team, it was mad, really, because I weren't like thinking I'm going to play regular. I'm not going to be getting a team before Giggs or Beckham or anything like that. I just felt so privileged and happy to be there and to be working with these players every day. It was such a whirlwind, the season that I really spent around the first team. It was sort of pinch yourself every day because you're going into to train with some of the best players in the world day in, day out. It was an incredible experience that when I look back on now, it does feel like it was sort of such a dream, such a whirlwind that happened.
It's funny that because we had John O'Greening on the show quite a while ago now, and John O said the same thing, that John O was obviously at York City, and obviously the move he thought he was going to go to Tottenham Hotspur didn't materialise, and then he got an opportunity to go to Man United. Went there with his parents and just signed on the spot because he said it's too much of a good opportunity to turn down, and he wasn't going to let that opportunity just pass him by, because you only get one opportunity in football, Luke, don't you? And for those moments and those chances, that you've got to take them with both hands.
Yeah, definitely. Obviously, Jono's a great lad and had a brilliant career, and it's like he would have gone up, had the opportunity to play for Spurs, but probably similar to me. As soon as you step into Manchester United, it's got a bit like a draw around it. Like, obviously, the manager's got such an aura. The whole club feels such a special place and a wonderful history, a wonderful environment, and to have any part of that history, only myself a tiny part of it, but to have been involved in the club at all, it still feels to me now, however many years after, 20 odd years after, such a privilege to have been part of it.
Obviously, being at United, obviously you want to play more games than obviously you got opportunities to. And I know we spoke off air about how important loan moves are to players. They were to me personally. I know you've had your fair share during your career, but I want to touch on Royal Antwerp, because obviously being an outsider looking in at United, that the link was there because a lot of United players went over to Belgium to play. So did you go over there on your own? Was it a natural progression? Was the United coaches over there? How did it all work?
So I think it weren't planned at all. I had a really good 2 years as a scholar at Man United, and probably signed a professional contract, probably coming back after the summer break to be a first-year professional. I was probably expected to be around the first team or touch on the first team, but obviously I'd signed a professional contract, so I had a bit more money in my pocket, and I went and had a really good summer away from football and probably didn't treat myself as well as I should. And when I went back to the club, I weren't in any condition to compete. I thought I was Billy Big Time back in the little village where I lived in Cambridge, sort of giving it big licks around the town, and my attitude was all wrong. And I come back and I was miles away from the first team, so the club sort of wanted to get some first team football into me, and when the chance came up to go to Belgium, I was absolutely buzzing. I went and they flew me over to watch a game, and they were playing a top team in the cup, and the atmosphere was absolutely electric. There was all smoke bombs in the crowd, like it was a proper European atmosphere, and I was absolutely buzzing to get back there and start playing. There was another two lads there that were my age in my youth team that I was really close with as well, so it made me settle really quickly, and it was a wonderful experience, both as a life experience and obviously a football experience as well. And I absolutely loved being in Belgium. It was an incredible time for me.
You can only obviously look at the facts and obviously the stats, and the stats are very, very interesting. And obviously you must have enjoyed your football because you scored some goals. You know what I mean? You played plenty of games, and obviously different styles of football. Is it more technical than the football you just left, or what kind of football was it? And did it suit your game?
It suited my game in the fact that I was so different to what Belgian football was. It was a lot slower in terms of teams would stay on the ball for long periods of time, and it was quite tactical and it was played. But I used to just play in a certain way, like I did when I was at United, where every time I get the ball, I'd just try and run as fast as I could towards the other team's goal, which other teams weren't used to in the league that I played in Belgium. So I got a huge amount of success, scored a few goals. The crowd really took to me, which obviously gave me huge confidence as a young player playing his first team games. And I've got 7,000, 8,000, 9,000 maniac Belgian fans singing my name. So it gave me a huge amount of confidence. And it really made me, I think. I think if that loan move gave me the confidence to believe that I could be a footballer, although a big ask to go and be a mainstay in the Manchester United team.
You just said there, Luke. Sorry, Si. You just said there how important is supporters to give you confidence? You know, I mean, I know how important they were for me, and how probably still hearing good things is nice to hear. But when you playing at a certain club, so Antwerp, for example, how important were the fans to give you that belief in yourself?
I think hugely important as a young player that I was, and I think as you get older, you sort of realise that half the fans are going to think you're rubbish, and hopefully half, maybe less than that, think you're quite good. So it was, but at that young age of first coming through, it meant so much, and it was such a buzz to hear that and to know that you were one of the most popular players. It really did give me a huge amount of confidence.
So, Luke, I was going to just kind of ask if there was a moment during that period where you really made a decision that you were going to, like, maybe you needed to move from United, or if there was a particular kind of game or period where you just thought, no, I'm going to have to go. Or did you always believe in yourself and your ability, and that, you know, you thought you would eventually make that kind of break into the first team?
I think during the season when I come back from Antwerp, and there was a season where I played, well, I didn't play a huge amount, but came off the bench, I was sort of thought I was comfortable here. I was making a good impact in training. I was coming off the bench and making a good impact in games, and sort of went through that season, probably coming to the next season never thinking I'm going to take Beckham's place here, but maybe, or Giggs' place, but I might get a little bit more game time. I think as that season sort of went on, I started developing some problems with my hips and pelvis, which resulted in me having surgery. And probably the outstanding attribute that I had to my game, and the reason why I played first team games at Manchester United, because I was incredibly fast. I could run just as fast with the ball as without it and change direction quickly. I think when I lost a little bit of that, I never had enough other stuff to go on and be a top player at Man United. I never had what Beckham had, where he could, if he weren't getting joy out wide, he'll get it off the centre half and ping a 70-yard through ball. I never sort of had what Giggs had, where if he weren't as quick as the fullback, he could come inside and be just as effective sort of playing in central areas. So I wouldn't, maybe a bit unfair on myself to call myself a one-trick pony, but every time,
I think so.
Every time I got the ball, what I try and do is just run with it. That was my game, and without that, it was plain for me to see in training I weren't having the effect. In the games, I weren't having the same effect. So it was, and the manager was completely honest with me in saying, without the speed, you won't be a Man United player, and it's going to be real tough to be a Premier League player, which is obviously hard to hear, but I could see it myself. So then after that, it was a case of trying to find another way. Of the other loan moves to Reading and to Burnley was always just trying to find a way of still being a professional footballer, albeit not at the same level as what I had at Manchester United. Okay.
Before we move on to progress onto your career, I obviously would like to speak about your goals at United. Obviously, you scored 2 first-team goals. Tell us about them, Luke, because obviously, you know, we spoke before about certain teams that you enjoy playing against. I know you've got a couple yourself, but tell us, you know, I mean, obviously the probably the most famous one for United is obviously the Leeds United goal, which people obviously remember, and it always gets shown a lot with obviously the rivalry, and obviously especially now with Leeds being back in the Premier League and United being there, and the way that the game was as well, and the way that things happened, obviously at United at the time. So tell us how those moments felt for you.
Yeah, obviously you say you see it a lot. That's probably me on my social media. I share it most days. But
it's more the celebration, though, Luke, isn't it? You know what I mean? Nothing ever gets you ready for that moment when you score a goal.
Yeah, obviously the Leeds. I scored against Bradford, but the Leeds one was obviously the big one because the rivalry was so fierce between the two clubs. I remember coming on at half time because Nicky Butt got injured, and it was such a surreal moment, really, because Scholesy put Ollie clear on the right, and he's had like a really weak shot, and obviously Nigel Martin was one of the best keepers in the Premier League at the time, and I never for a second thought he'd spill it, but somehow he's just pushed it out, and my eyes have just lit up, and the ball's an empty. Even I can't miss this one. I've tapped it in, and I then just run off like a lunatic, just running round, and the players. When I watch it back on the TV or whatever on the internet, you sort of see as I run away, loads of Leeds fans standing up, shouting all sorts of obscenities at me as I'm running around like a lunatic. But it was, without a doubt, the highlight moment of my Manchester United career to score. I remember that made it 1-0 to us. And for the rest of the game, there was probably about half hour left. And I was just sort of hoping and praying that we held on to a 1-0 so I would be credited with scoring the winning goal in such a big game. But it never happened. I think Viduka scored about 9 minutes to go and broke my heart.
Yeah, but it's those moments, though, Luke, isn't it? You know, that those moments in football that nobody can ever take away from you. The proud moments that you've scored at Ellen Road, you've scored for United with that red shirt on, and it's just a dream which everybody, you know, a cliche, but you know what I mean. You've lived the ultimate dream, you know what I mean, which is just absolutely fantastic to see, and you know what I mean. It's the joy and the ecstasy in your face, you know what I mean, because I love to see players who obviously do well, and players that I've played with, and ex-teammates and things, and it's just great to see the elation, because I always said that I never had a planned celebration, and there's only one which I ever did have a planned celebration for, by the way, but even that went out the window a little bit. That it was just pure elation, pure madness, pure just me being a bit over the top and a bit daft, because I just wanted to score goals, but I never really thought the implications and what followed it. Basically, I just didn't really have a plan.
Yeah, there's no better feeling. I mean, I never had a plan, because I'm sure you scored a fair few more goals than me. I didn't score that many, but it was just that it's such a incredible feeling scoring a goal in like a big game. I feel it's incredible how some people plan these sort of celebrations, because in my head I'm just running off as fast as I can with my hands again.
Which is great. It's absolutely great. Obviously, you touched on yourself about going to Reading and having a season at Burnley, which you played more or less a full season, scored a few goals, and then a permanent move to London followed suit to West Ham. I know we've got a few West Ham followers and a few West Ham fans who I'm sure will get involved and ask you some questions about your time there. I'm sure I've seen a couple. One was about Teddy Sheringham, which you've already answered, but obviously from West Ham point of view. But tell us about your time at West Ham, Lucas. As an opposing player, every time I played at Upton Park, it was always amazing. The atmosphere was absolutely fantastic. It wasn't a nice place to go to, but I always enjoyed it. You know, it was hostile, but hostile in a nice possible way.
Yeah, I was. I loved my time at West Ham. I wouldn't say that I excelled as a player. I probably, after leaving Manchester United, going Reading, Burnley, I was always sort of trying to transforming the way I played to still be effective and have a career in football where like I mentioned before, I weren't really that wide man that could just run past players as easily anymore. So probably spent the next 4 or 5 seasons really trying to change my style of play. But in terms of West Ham as a club, like you say there, the atmosphere is electric, particularly under the lights in a night game. I think it was we had a really good squad of players that season, and probably underperformed until we got into the playoffs. So we probably should have won the league with the squad that was there, but in the end just sneaked into the back door of the playoffs and then got promoted that way. So a lot of the time, like you mentioned there, it was a really intense atmosphere at West Ham, and a lot of the time the fans were on our back quite a lot that season, because rightly so, we didn't perform. It was sometimes a lonely place on that wing when you're giving the ball away again with some of what you get. But it was
what was it, Luke? Was it the expectation then? Was it the expectation of the fans? You know, because you obviously, you know what I mean, with the players that you had on the pitch, did you then underperform as a group?
I'd say, yeah. Obviously, in the end, we got promoted, so you can't say it was an underperformance. But throughout the season, a lot of the time...
Which, Luke, is the best possible way to get promoted, by the way, in the playoffs, if you can guarantee it.
Without a doubt, yeah. That sort of getting in late doors as well. There's nothing better than that. I think we did underperform. The club lost in the playoff final the year before. I don't know if you remember, against Crystal Palace when Shipley scored the winner.
Yeah.
So it was always, from the start of the season, the atmosphere was always a little bit, if we weren't going to get a good start, the crowd had turned quite quickly. I think in the end, Alan Pardew deserves so much credit. I've never seen a manager under so much pressure in terms of the fans wanting him out, etc., and really got on his back. But he came through that and he won them over, and the fans really got behind us in the playoffs against Ipswich, and then the rest is history. I think it was at the Millennium Stadium where Bobby Zamora scored the winner against Preston North End, and it was huge for the club to get back in the Premier League. It was such a big deal for that to happen. So it was proud to be a part of. I can't say I played a huge role in it, but to be in and around the squad for the season was... I love my time at West Ham. It is a proper... But all the clubs I played for are proper football clubs, but West Ham was...
Yeah, no, I know. It's a reputation, the history they have, that it's a massive thing. Obviously, we're on about goals earlier on and celebrations earlier on. I did see, you scored one goal in the season for West Ham United, and I've seen the goal. I watched it today, actually. And your celebration again was quite a similar celebration, really, to the United goal we've just been talking about. So, am I right in thinking that was Leeds United again? Was that Leeds again?
Yeah, Leeds again. That was a Friday night game. I remember it was on
Park.
Sky. And Matty Everington put a cross in, and again, it's quite a simple finish from about 4 or 5 yards out, but celebrated like I'd scored that goal like Maradona against England.
And rightly so. He's one of our West Ham fans, isn't he?
Yeah, I thought you might have one. He asked, who's the best player you played with while you were at the Irons?
Again, I'd have to say Teddy, like even at his later years. I think he was probably about 40, 41, but he was still sort of far and away the best player on the pitch most weeks. And he had a fantastic season that season as well. He scored a lot of goals and got a lot of assists as well. He played up top with Bobby Zamora or Marlon Harewood, who were both fantastic players as well. So there was some... Mark Noble made his debut that season as well, and you could see from a young age what a fantastic player he was going to be, and obviously what a stellar career he's gone on to have at West Ham.
Yeah, I totally agree, and that I think that just shows how old we all are, Luke, doesn't it? That Mark's still playing now and captain in the side, where he's managing the whole club really behind the scenes, but. No, that's fantastic. And you just mentioned some names there. Bobby Zamora leads the line really well. Marlon Harewood, what a player. What a player. He had all the attributes, didn't he? Coming through at Nottingham Forest, signing at West Ham. He was just a proper centre forward who every defender must have hated to play against.
Yeah, absolute handful. Like pace, power, good finish as well. To be fair to him, and Zamora obviously both went on to have good Premier League careers.
I think Zamora was one of the most underrated Premier League strikers that there's been. He's right up there. If you look at his record and his performances in the Premier League and in the Championship, he's massively underrated in my opinion. He's all-round play as well. I thought he was very, very good.
I agree. We've
got lots and lots and lots of questions
there's loads.
Stacking up.
Yeah,
some of them are on the kind of the same subjects. Some of them are on different subjects. So I'll see if I can pick out a couple now. Let's have a look. What we got? We've done the Roy Keane one. We're going to get to that in a minute. It's Mr. Stuart Campbell, Andy's father,
my old
says, man. Does the lack of fans in the stadiums favour the away teams?
From what I'm watching and what I've seen so far, I would probably like to say yes, because I think they're going into games with no pressure. You know what I mean? Some grounds, we just spoke about West Ham's ground and Old Ground, by the way. You know what I mean? Some grounds are hostile and they're not a nice place to go to for away teams, where at the minute, no atmosphere, there's no hostile atmosphere, there's no pressure, and they're going there enjoying it. What about you, Luke? How do you feel about that?
Yeah, I think there's just no sort of advantage now, is there? It's just a 50-50 chance. I think some teams that like to play on the counter-attack, the game sees so much more even in terms of the fans aren't there to to push you on, particularly like the home fans, to have a fast start. It is. Yeah. It's a strange setup.
And I'll use the game on was it Saturday night, the United Crystal Palace game. There's no way in the world Crystal Palace would have played like that if there were 72,000 United fans there, because you know what I mean, they'll have set up differently, they'll have sat back, soaked up the pressure for the first 20 minutes. They wouldn't have got at them like they did in the first 7-8 minutes. There was no way that would happen, and United would have got the boost from the fans to push them on to another level, and that's where the big sides are really missing out.
They'd have been bang up for it as well from the first minute. United, first game of the season, the crowd would have been rocking. However, Crystal Palace deserved their victory. I think they were very good.
Totally.
I wouldn't be surprised to see Zaha back at United, if I'm honest, because they need a right winger, which is mad.
Not after Patrice Evra's comments, he won't be, by the way.
Well, but that's the truth, though. That was the truth. That was well known.
You don't say that live on Sky Sports live game.
Everybody knew it anyway. They knew that's why David Moyes wasn't picking him. So I don't think there's anything wrong with saying that on Sky. Like, what did he say really? What did he say though? He said he didn't play because there was rumours about him and David Moyes' daughter, wasn't there? I mean,
well, he used the words affair. You know what I mean? So
right, okay.
You know what I mean? So I think you're opening the can of worms, aren't you, when you say certain things?
Yeah, of course. What he should have said is just said that he wasn't playing for football reasons, maybe, or something like that. And then it's all right, then, isn't it? Everyone knows what the reasons were.
But everyone loves Patrice Evra, so you get away with it.
Yeah, no one cares what Patrice says. He can say what he wants. Mr. Stuart Campbell also asked...
hero, isn't he?
He is. Legendary questions. He said, Luke, which team in the present Premier League would you suit the most? Or suit your game the most?
That's a good question, that.
What a question.
That's a tough one.
Bear in mind, Luke, my dad asks the worst questions on every show. He's pulled out 2 beauties already.
He always asks good questions.
I'd probably say Spurs.
Oh, what an
answer. And Jose.
At me,
explain, Luke. Explain why.
At me best, which obviously ain't probably at the level of what the Spurs players are now, but I like the way Son makes them movements in behind, and I think I'd really enjoy playing with Harry Kane as well. I like playing with big strikers that have got good quality that you can play the ball in and they'll hold it up. So I'll probably say Spurs in one of them in the 7, 11 or 10 behind Kane. I think they'd suit me quite well.
How tall are you, Luke?
I am 5'11".
No, Jose's never playing you, mate.
He wouldn't play me anyway.
Gotta be 6 foot at least. Gotta be 6 foot at least, otherwise you ain't getting in. Okay, Andy, I know you've got one more subject you want to cover before I finish off with some questions and stuff. So
look, I want to focus and look at obviously the most games you played in your career was obviously at MK Dons. How much did you enjoy that?
I loved that MK Dons. I think I was absolutely delighted when I got the move to Norwich.
I'm not laughing at you, Luke. That comment's outrageous, by the way. That comment's outrageous.
I was playing up at Stoke, and then I went from West Ham to Stoke and moved up to Stoke, and then my family didn't settle, so they came back down south. So I got to move to Norwich, which I was delighted about, but then got a bad injury in my first game and never really settled. So I sort of got the move to MK Dons, which was quite near where I lived. So my whole time at MK I was so settled, both on the pitch and off the pitch. I had good structure to my life. I lived 40 minutes from the training ground, so I could live back at home in Cambridge where I grew up. My kids were happy, my wife was happy. It was just a real settled period where MK was a great club. I was always treated so well there. The chairman was a great man. I enjoyed working under all the managers that I worked for there. The fans took to me straight away. Good group of players that I worked with, good lads as well. So it was just a real settled period, which probably told on the pitch in terms of as consistent as I'd been in my career.
And you also seen the transition, didn't you, of MK? You know that where they are now is just and what they've got now is ridiculous.
Yeah, into like the facilities and whatnot are incredible. Incredible stadium. I think that was a big draw for me to go there. We had a cup game for Norwich, and I was blown away by the stadium. So when the opportunity went to go there, it was a no-brainer and somewhere just to go. obviously the level below the Championship.
Yeah.
And I just played every week and thoroughly enjoyed it, really.
And also I want to touch on something before we get some more questions from the viewers, because obviously they play a huge part in this show. You finished your career at Cambridge, which is obviously a dream come true, I'm guessing. But was that always the plan? Was that something that you'd always wanted to do, or that was the ideal way to finish the career?
That was always the plan. I'm really proud of myself that I ended up doing it. Obviously, I was still not playing. I was getting older. I knew I was getting a bit older. I was still an important player in the squad at MK, but I went and spoke to Carl Robinson and Gary Waddock at the time and told them about my history, told them what my dream was to play for Cambridge, and the club supported me so much in terms of going there. So I actually made contact with Cambridge and sort of told them, look, I'm a big fan of the club. This is what I want to do. And fortunately, they went with the idea, and it was like a dream come true to play there. Like I said, I used to fantasise going to bed as a kid at night about scoring a goal up the Newmarket Road end, which I managed to do. So I'm in an incredibly privileged position to say that I actually lived my dream out. So it was something I'm really proud of.
What a story! What a story that is! What an amazing story and way to finish. But last question on that then is: was it everything and more to play for your hometown club?
It was mad. Like, I've never felt like that on a football field before. I felt so, like, when I got going, I was fine. But when I scored the goal, I went and sort of scored up the Newmarket Road end, like behind one of the goals where I used to stand when I was a teenager, and sort of went over there, celebrated in front of the crowd, and then the lads jumped to me. And then when I was walking back to the centre circle, I'm not even an emotional guy at all. I'm quite sort of straight-laced, but I nearly started crying. I started welling up inside. It was the weirdest and most incredible feeling I've ever had on a football pitch throughout my whole life. Really, it was everything and more, without a shadow of a doubt.
Good lad. Shows you're human, mate. I guess that shows you're human. Yeah. We're not all robots, are we? When we play football, we're allowed to be human.
Absolutely. Yeah. So, Luke, I just wanted to finish off. As part of A.C.E Podcast Nation, we do a lot of different shows. One of the shows, a series we do is mental health, and we're also bringing mental health in sport series 2 back in a week or two. And I wanted to talk to you just briefly about this to finish the show. It's something which you've discussed in public. You've discussed in various interviews about the struggles that you suffered with your mental health, and due to generally abuse from people. In particular, I think the thing which stands out for people is the show which was on BBC. They Think It's All Over. And I kind of I was wondering if you had heard from people like Nick Hancock, Gary Lineker, and people like this since you came out and kind of said, no, hang on a minute, I was not okay with this stuff.
Yeah, all them guys have apologised. I think so much was made of that. I think it maybe missed the original point of what I was saying. And don't get me wrong, I never thought it'd go as sort of far as what it did in terms of the attention that it got. What the point that I was making in terms of the situation that we were all going through in lockdown with everyone's mental health, I'm sure everyone's would be fluctuating up and down in such a strange, surreal situation, was to talk about your problems. If you've got problems, you feel low, the best way to get out of that is to talk about it, to find someone to talk to, something that I didn't do at that time when I was going through these struggles because of things that were said about the way I looked, to my appearance. And that was the point of what I was saying, was trying to be a positive message of, if you've got a problem, talk about it, because it's like a weight off your shoulder. I think in terms of They Think It's All Over, Nick Hancock, I've got hold no grudge to these people whatsoever. It's something that happened 20 years ago on a TV show. So it was, it's not as if I was ever looking for an apology. It was more a message that I was trying to say about how I could have dealt with my problems better back in that time. So that's what I was trying to say. So I don't want to sort of bring up Nick Hancock.
Yeah, no.
Like, there's no issue there whatsoever.
No, I mean, for me, I wondered about it because, like, obviously you would, like you just said there, you didn't feel like you had dealt with your mental health side of it properly, or not properly, that's the wrong word, but, as well as you could have at the time. And for me, like in TV shows like that, you know, where the general gist of it is poking fun at sportsmen, etc. I think like if you're poking fun at like, you know, ability or like misses or, you know, bloopers, gags, whatever it may be, I think that's all right. But I feel like they crossed the line a bit, and it was week in, week out. So it must have been a very difficult period for you. Like, there's loads of questions and comments about this in the chat, but I just wanted to read you a couple of the kind of nice comments to finish, because people have been filling the chat up on the various platforms of just really nice comments just about you and the like how you've come across. So Donna said, Luke, I saw your interview on BBC Breakfast News during the first lockdown. Was shocked about what you went through. You come across then and now as so bubbly and smiley. It must have been a very small minority. What else do we say? I'm trying to find it because
on that point though,
yeah,
on that point, obviously that show was they think it's all over or whatever it was. It was called back in the day. So you've got one now. What is James Corden's A League of Their Own?
Yes,
they still do it now with certain individuals, certain people, and to each other, and it sells, doesn't it? It sells and makes TV.
Of course,
you know what I mean? And unfortunately, or fortunately, you know what I mean. Until somebody makes a bigger thing of it, and until somebody speaks out, and if that's Luke over social media. Or Luke coming over and doing interviews, you know what I mean? Because like Luke just said there, the things that everybody's had to deal with over the last 6-7 months or whatever, however long this has been going on, that it's played a huge part in everyone's life, and we've all probably found things that we've not dealt with properly, and probably looked when we've had loads of time to ourselves, sat at home with kids and with family, and thought about mistakes that we've made in our life, things that we could have done better. And that's, you know what I mean, that's with your own children, with other people, and mistakes we've made, and I think that's also other people have done it, you know what I mean. So for people to come out and apologise, you know what I mean, and as long as you know,
said that at the start, didn't I, about apologising and learning from mistakes,
which is great. But for me, you know what I mean, certain things should never really happen in the first place, in my opinion. Yeah, but as long as Luke's comfortable and happy with the way that they've dealt with it, then.
Yeah, of course. And it's a personal thing, isn't it? For me, like, I like kind of like edgy comedy, etc., etc. However, I do feel in shows like They Think It's All Over or The League of Their Own, things like this, I do feel like the person who they're making fun of has got to be in on the joke. If they're not in on the joke, so if they're, say, just using you as an example, Luke, sorry, but like if you had gone on the show and they had made some sort of joke, whatever it may be, and you were all right with it, and you were in on the joke, you were laughing and joking along with it, then that's all right for me, because you're happy with it and you're comfortable with it. Whereas if you go on there and they won't say those jokes because you're there, then that's where like there's a problem for me then, because they're, I don't know how to word it, and I get my words kind of twisted up. But what I mean is, like, there's room for comedy and there's room for kind of poking fun at people, but it's got to be done in the right way, in a light-hearted way. And I feel like with that example, that I feel like they went too far. And
yeah, I think I completely understand what you're saying. I think in terms of where I was at in my life as well at that time, where I was sort of just got into the Manchester United, but I didn't really know myself that well at all. And for that to happen, I just didn't know how to deal with it. And that's not people's fault that we're saying it. Obviously, it definitely shouldn't have been said. But I thought it was such a sort of a childish thing to say about that. I thought there was something wrong with me because it was affecting me so much. So I didn't ever want to say anything about it because I felt so embarrassed that they were saying these things about me. At the same time, I was so down on myself because I was getting so down on about it. And I should be absolutely buzzing because I'm playing for the biggest football club in the world. So it was a strange situation. Obviously, I spoke about probably what you mentioned at the start, Andy, about you're in a bubble as a footballer. All I ever knew was football. So whenever these things are happening around me that weren't involved in football, I didn't really know how to deal with it because I didn't know myself well enough, because all I ever sort of saw myself was a footballer, probably not even a person. And they were saying stuff that weren't involving football. It was about my appearance, and I just didn't have any idea of what to do and how to deal with it. So I just completely sort of went in my shell and just let it all build up inside, which affected me really negatively.
Yeah, and it goes back to what we were saying about growing up in the limelight as well.
Yeah,
because
I
you were a young man, you know.
I think that's the same
growing up
for all. Luke just mentioned there about being in a bubble. You know, that it's similar to me, but not on a national stage, as in on TV publicly. That jealousy plays a huge part. You know what I mean? You're playing professional football, which people don't like that they've been successful. You're playing for the biggest club in the world. I was playing for my hometown club at the time, so you know what I mean. You're getting jealous people who are saying negative things, and they don't realise they're having an effect on you. They think it's a laugh and a joke, and it's funny, and it's not. You know what I mean? Because you're going into a training session, going into a game with negative thoughts in your head, but then they're the ones giving you stick after a game, or during the game. But the reason I'm not playing very well is because of what you're saying. You know what I mean? So there's a bigger picture to it, and supporters have a bigger influence on players' performance levels than they realise. You know that, and I'll use an example of Luke said it when he was standing out wide at Upton Park, and you know what I mean, the abuse you can get. You know what I mean? There's no worse place, by the way, when you're playing badly. I'm not saying Luke played badly, by the way, as a footballer. When you're standing out, you're standing out wide on a football pitch, and the ball's gone underneath your foot, or it's bounced over your foot, and it's an absolute nightmare. You can hear the groans, you can hear the abuse, you can see the substitute warming up, and you're thinking your whole world's just want the whole world to end, because you do at the time feel it's that bad, but. You know what I mean? But supporters have a huge role to play, and the public, in the public eye, and celebrities, TV. And for me, Luke said it there, it shouldn't have been done. I agree. They should have known better. And hopefully they learn from these kind of things, and someone in the future doesn't have to endure and go through the things that Luke had to go through, and other players have to go through, because footballers are there to play football and enjoy what they do. And Phil Foden and Greenwood, they need to go and enjoy it instead of getting constant abuse and worrying on a Sunday morning what's going to be in that newspaper, which story is going to be in that newspaper from 7 years ago. Because people have got hold of all these old stories, by the way, and they're waiting to bring them out. They're waiting for a... Yeah,
they hold on to them, mate, don't they?
Of course they do, but there should be a shelf life for me, and I don't agree with it, because, you know what I mean, it annoys me.
Statute of limitations on... Well,
we've all made mistakes,
stories.
And for me, if you don't bring it out within 6 months of the story happening, you ain't allowed to use it. You ain't allowed.
Should be, shouldn't it? So just to finish off, Rob Boyle said, sorry to bombard the chat, he said, but I've got to be honest, Luke comes across as one of the nicest and most genuine guests you've ever had, and I'll be sure to give him a follow on Twitter. Make sure you follow me back.
Bear in mind, by the way, I would believe him, Luke, but Rob put that horrible comment on about me, so I don't believe a word he says.
I think it was a different Rob, mate. I think it was a different Rob. I think it was a different Rob, wasn't it? No, it's the same one. Well spotted.
There we go.
Well spotted indeed.
All remembered.
And also, I'd just like to say, James Costley made a great comment there. He says, shows like Britain's Got Talent and X Factor exploit mental health problems for views. And I fully believe that as well. I think that I
totally agree.
I hate shows like that. But anyway, there we are. James asked this question right at the start of the show, and I didn't go back to it, so we'll finish on this. Luke, what was it like playing at Ninian Park?
Ninian Park, that was a tough place to go. That was a tough. I remember going there with. If you went as West Ham, you would have always lost. By the way, because we had an unbelievable record against West Ham at Ninian. Yeah, I think we did get beat that day. I think I got pulled off at half time as well. Got subbed off, so obviously weren't having a great game that night. But it was always. In fact, I can't remember ever winning a game at Ninian Park.
Oh, well. Luckily enough, I did. That would have been a bit of a nightmare if I didn't. It was a nice place to play. It was one of those like Upton Park. I found it.
Yeah, tough place to go.
Yeah, but nice when you got there.
Oh yes, guys. Thank you for all the comments, the questions. It's been amazing. Again, some good numbers, good banter, good everything. Positivity. I like it.
I think I just saw a comment flash up there. I think it was what beard dyed as Luke.
Yeah,
that was just for men. If you want to go
Just for men. There you go.
One, if you fancy getting on it.
Yeah, I've used that before. I gave up on it though. I've gone for the grey now because I've got grey coming through everywhere. So
I've gone for the grey as well.
Abandon it. Just abandon it.
I'm not really bothered. Not bothered.
No, me neither. I'm embracing it now. Embracing the age. I'm just getting better with age. That's what I keep telling myself.
You don't like your confidence, do you?
Not on camera, no. Luke, it's been a pleasure, mate. A genuine pleasure. I've really enjoyed it.
No, thank you, guys. Thoroughly enjoyed it.
Been classmate. Keep sending those positive tweets out and keep me amused every morning when I wake up, please.
I'm running out of banter. I've got nothing left.
Mate, well, don't expect me to pass any across to you.
Luke, what is your social media tag? Give it a plug.
I think if you just type Luke Chadwick, I'm not 100% sure. It's Luke.
Andy, do you know what it is?
It is Luke _FFF.
FFF.
Is it? Something like that?
No, I think it's just FFF.
Is it FFF?
I don't know.
Yeah, Luke _FFF.
Guys, follow.
Not that I stalk anybody, by the way. Just.
Yeah. But guys, follow the Andy Campbell Show on all social media at A.C.E Footy Show, and you can follow Luke Chadwick at _FFF on Twitter, and you can follow A.C.E Podcast Nation on various platforms. Just search A.C.E Podcast Nation. Got loads of different shows this week, including West Indies legend Courtney Walsh is joining us for the cricket show. Cannot wait for that. Got Kevin McNaughton's Crazy Football episode number 2 coming. Oh dear, that was interesting. And to finish the week, we have the Andy Campbell Championship Show live Friday, where we will talk Kiefer Moore's masterclass of 2 set-piece goals. But Cardiff City won, so that's the main thing. That's all that matters. Harris in. Until then, we will see you. Thank you to everyone for tuning in. Thank you for everyone for watching, downloading and everything after the fact. Spread the word. Tell people Monday nights, the Andy Campbell Football Show with guests from the football world. Thank you to Bespoke Financial for sponsoring the show. And thank you to Black Diamond Sports. Thank you to our guest, Luke Chadwick. And thank you to my co-host, Mr. Andrew Campbell.
Cheers, guys.
My mummy and daddy have been talking about life insurance. It sounds like something to protect my brother and me, but I don't really understand. Then my Auntie Louise told Mummy about Bespoke Financial Teesside. She said they're a local company who helped her with her life insurance. Mummy got in touch, and because they're based locally, a man called Darren was able to come to our house. He was really friendly. Darren stayed for a cup of tea and made it all really easy to understand. He said that life insurance will protect our home and family if anything bad were to happen. Like if Mummy or Daddy got sick, then we'd get enough money to take care of us, and our house would be paid for so it wouldn't get taken away. After an hour, Darren said goodbye and Mummy and Daddy seemed a lot happier. Once it was all sorted, we could all relax and watch a film together as a family. I don't know why they didn't do it sooner.